I'll give you the Ferrari if you can get it to run. Jonathan Blackwell's voice sliced through the warm California air like a blade of arrogance. The laughter that followed was loud, sharp, and cruel. Across the courtyard of Blackwell Luxury Motors, sunlight glared off rows of spotless luxury cars, Bentleys, Lamborghinis, Porsches, symbols of money and power. But the real show that afternoon wasn't for customers. It was for humiliation. In the far corner of the courtyard, under a half-torn tarp, sat a wrecked red Ferrari 488, once a masterpiece, now a mangled shell of steel and shame. Its engine was dead. Its frame twisted. To most, it was a carcass of failure. To Jonathan Blackwell, it was a trophy, and that day, it became his tool for cruelty. Walter Johnson, 72 years old, had stopped by only to pick up his granddaughter, Rebecca, who worked there as a receptionist. His old '98 Ford pickup had coughed, sputtered, and died right at the dealership entrance, a breakdown that turned into public theater. Blackwell, a billionaire real estate mogul with too much money and too little humility, saw an opportunity for entertainment. He clapped his hands, calling for attention. "Look, everyone! This gentleman seems to think he's a mechanic. Let's see if he can fix that old junk of his." Salesmen chuckled. Customers smirked. Phones came out. Recording. Walter stepped out of the truck slowly, his hands rough from years of work, his denim jacket faded, his boots worn. But his eyes, calm, observant, scanned the wrecked Ferrari quietly. He didn't react to the laughter. He didn't say a word. He just looked. Blackwell smirked, raising his phone to film. "Tell you what, old man, if you can get that Ferrari to run, it's yours." He pointed toward the wrecked red beauty in the corner. 5 mechanics had already declared it impossible. Blown engine, bent chassis, fried circuits. The car was dead. Laughter erupted again. Even the salesmen couldn't help themselves. To them, it was a harmless joke. To Blackwell, it was dominance. But Walter didn't flinch. "Sir," he said quietly, "may I take a closer look?" "Be my guest," Blackwell chuckled. "Just don't hurt yourself." Walter walked toward the Ferrari. The world around him, the laughter, the phones, the sneers, faded into silence. His fingertips brushed against the dented hood. For a second, something changed in his expression, a flicker of familiarity. No one noticed. But he did. For the next 30 minutes, the old man inspected the Ferrari piece by piece. While the crowd whispered and mocked, his movements were slow, deliberate, not the fumbling curiosity of an amateur, but the precision of someone who knew. Blackwell leaned against a Rolls-Royce, filming. 30 minutes in, and he still thinks he can do it. "I almost admire the determination." Laughter echoed across the courtyard. One of the younger salesmen, Ryan, called out, "Hey, old man! My dad runs a bike shop. I can get you a job there if this doesn't work out." More laughter. Phones kept recording. Still, Walter ignored them. His hands moved like memory. Confident, exact. Every screw he turned, every panel he lifted seemed to mean something only he understood. What the crowd didn't know was that for 45 years, Walter Johnson had worked on machines far more complex than luxury cars. While men like Blackwell built empires of money, Walter built machines of precision. His granddaughter, Rebecca, hadn't yet returned from lunch. She had no idea what was happening, or how her grandfather's quiet dignity was being torn apart for entertainment. By now, Blackwell was streaming live on Instagram. "Look at this guy. He's so focused. It's touching, really. The confidence of old age." He spoke with dripping sarcasm. His 200,000 followers sent laughing emojis. But amid the laughter, a few of the more observant employees began to notice something odd. The old man's hands weren't random. They were methodical. He wasn't guessing. He was working. Still, most laughed harder. After nearly an hour, Blackwell checked his Rolex. 45 minutes! Incredible. Most people give up at 10. Such persistence. Walter looked up for the first time. "Mr. Blackwell?" he said softly. "May I ask you a question?" Blackwell paused. "Sure, old man, what's that?" "Have you ever built something yourself?" Walter asked, his voice steady. Something that existed only in your imagination and became real because of your own hands? Blackwell blinked, unsure how to respond. I built a real estate empire, he said, smirking. Walter nodded. No, sir. That's buying, not building. For the first time that afternoon, the laughter stopped. There was something in the old man's voice. Not anger, but quiet authority. Blackwell forced a laugh. You've got spirit, I'll give you that. But he was rattled. 2 hours had passed when Walter finally asked, could someone hand me a Phillips screwdriver? Number 2, insulated handle. Ryan frowned. I don't know if we have one. Drawer 3, Walter said calmly. On the red bench. Second shelf. Next to the Torx keys. Ryan froze. How could this old man know the layout of a workshop he had never entered? The crowd murmured. Blackwell forced another laugh. Well, maybe he's been in a lot of garages, huh? But his tone wasn't confident anymore. Just then, Rebecca returned from lunch. As she stepped into the courtyard, she froze. A crowd surrounded the wrecked Ferrari. Her grandfather was in the center, tools in hand. Her stomach twisted. She knew Jonathan Blackwell's cruel games all too well. What's going on here? She asked. Blackwell grinned. Ah, perfect timing. Your friend here thinks he can fix a Ferrari that 5 expert mechanics called a total loss. Rebecca's heart sank. She stayed quiet. She knew her grandfather's pride. She knew he wouldn't want her to interfere. Not yet. Walter continued working, his hands moving faster now, more deliberate. He removed the control panel, rewired sections of the engine, and paused. His eyes narrowed. Then, in a calm but sharp voice, he said, Mr. Blackwell, this engine wasn't destroyed in an accident. The courtyard fell silent. What did you say? Blackwell asked, his voice trembling slightly. Walter lifted a small burned wire. This was cut, then burned to look like overheating. He pointed to a twisted metal rod. And these marks only happen when someone forces a manual brake. A murmur spread through the crowd. Phones zoomed in. Even to the untrained eye, the signs were clear. Blackwell's face went pale. That's ridiculous, he snapped. It was investigated. The police, yes, Walter interrupted gently. By people who didn't know what to look for. The old man's voice was calm, confident, every word measured. The arrogance that had once filled the courtyard was evaporating, replaced by tension. Rebecca's eyes widened. She understood now. Her grandfather wasn't just fixing a Ferrari, he was uncovering something. He leaned closer to the engine. This wasn't an accident, he said again, louder this time. It was sabotage. The word hit the air like a spark in gasoline. People looked from Walter to Blackwell. Some began whispering. Some stopped filming and started listening. And then Walter looked up, meeting Blackwell's eyes. Tell me, sir, he said quietly. How much did you collect from insurance for this car? Blackwell froze. He hadn't told anyone about that. The laughter was gone. The phones were still. The only sound was the wind brushing against the broken Ferrari and the slow, rhythmic clicking of Walter's tools as he continued to work. He wasn't just an old man anymore. He was something else. Someone who knew exactly what he was doing. And for the first time that day, Jonathan Blackwell, the man who owned everything, felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. The courtyard of Blackwell Luxury Motors had fallen silent. Phones that once filmed laughter were now recording in fear. Jonathan Blackwell stood frozen, his jaw tight. His voice stuck somewhere between denial and panic. Walter Johnson, the old man everyone mocked, had just said something no one dared imagine. This car wasn't wrecked. It was sabotaged. Rebecca could feel the shift in the air. The same crowd that laughed at her grandfather now watched him like a man who'd just uncovered a crime. Blackwell tried to steady his tone. You're talking nonsense, old man. You're confusing burn marks for corrosion. Walter didn't even look up. His voice was calm. I've seen corrosion, Mr. Blackwell. It doesn't leave scorch patterns that neat. And it doesn't melt insulation this clean. He turned toward the small group of employees who were still watching. This car was tampered with. Intentionally. Whoever did it knew how to disable the main power relay and make it look like an engine failure. A few gasps rippled through the group. Ryan, the young salesman, looked uneasy. "I thought it was totaled from a crash," he murmured. "It wasn't," Walter said, brushing dust from his hands. "It never even made it past 40 miles an hour before the failure. The brakes locked first." He paused. "Then the fire." Blackwell's composure cracked. "Enough!" he barked. "This is ridiculous. You think you can just waltz in here, tinker with my car, and accuse me of fraud?" Walter finally looked up, and in that moment something changed in his eyes. The quiet, humble mechanic vanished. What replaced him was steel. "Fraud?" he repeated. "That's a heavy word, Mr. Blackwell, but if you prefer—" He lifted a charred control chip. "We can call it evidence." He stepped closer. "Do you know what this is?" Blackwell didn't respond. "This chip doesn't belong to any standard Ferrari ECU," Walter continued. "It's an aftermarket relay controller, a custom prototype. I designed it myself 15 years ago." The crowd froze. Even Rebecca stared at her grandfather, speechless. You what?" Blackwell stammered. Walter set the burned chip gently on the hood of the car. "I was the lead engineer on this model's prototype team," he said quietly, "back when Ferrari partnered with Blackwell Technologies for custom ignition systems. Before they shut down the divisions and laid off 600 people." A heavy silence hung over the courtyard. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. The old man everyone mocked had built the very technology they were laughing at. Blackwell tried to laugh it off, but his voice trembled. "Even if that's true, it proves nothing." "Oh, it proves everything," Walter said. "This controller was part of a system only our team knew existed, and only one person had the authority to request these prototypes after the company folded." He paused, locking eyes with Blackwell. "You." The color drained from Blackwell's face. Phones were still recording. Someone whispered, "He's live right now." "Thousands are watching." Walter didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "The insurance payout on this car was $6 million, he said softly. The report claimed catastrophic engine fire. But this chip was built to never fail under heat. The only way it could burn like this is if it was deliberately overloaded." Blackwell's composure shattered. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Walter asked. "You ordered replacement chips through a dummy supplier 3 years ago." "I know, because I was the one who built the originals. And I still have the production serial records." Rebecca gasped. "Grandpa, you kept all that?" Walter smiled faintly. "Some things you keep, not out of anger, but to remember where integrity ends and greed begins." He turned back to the Ferrari. "Mr. Blackwell, when you destroyed this car, you didn't just commit insurance fraud. You tried to bury evidence that could expose your entire company." The crowd was stunned. Someone muttered, "He's finished." But Walter wasn't done. He stood up, straightened his jacket, and pressed the ignition switch. The engine coughed, once, twice, then roared to life. The sound was thunderous. Pure, alive, defiant. People jumped back. Cameras zoomed in. The Ferrari that was declared dead was alive again, and the man who rebuilt it was the same man Blackwell once destroyed. Rebecca covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Walter smiled faintly at her. "Machines don't die, sweetheart. People just give up on them too soon." Blackwell stumbled backward, pale and sweating. "Turn it off! You have no right to touch my property." Walter stepped closer. "Oh, but I do, because this," he tapped the hood, "was built with my design. You never paid for the rights when your company shut us down." A hush fell. Every word was being streamed to thousands. Walter continued, his voice now calm and almost sorrowful. "You used my team's work to build your empire. You cut corners. You faked tests. You sabotaged prototypes when they failed, then blamed the engineers who built them. I lost my job. My friends lost their homes. All because of you." The silence was deafening. "And today," Walter added, "you mocked me in front of my granddaughter for trying to fix something you broke." He turned toward the growing crowd. "This isn't about a car. It's about a man who thought power meant never being accountable. But real power," he looked at Rebecca, "is fixing what others destroy." Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. By now, live viewers had reached over 300,000. When the officers arrived, they didn't arrest Walter. They took Blackwell instead, for insurance fraud, destruction of evidence, and corporate theft. As the handcuffs clicked, Blackwell tried one last time. "You can't prove anything," he shouted. Walter held up the small burned chip between two fingers. "This little piece of metal," he said quietly, "is proof enough." Hours later, the courtyard was empty. Only Walter, Rebecca, and the once-broken Ferrari remained. The evening sun cast long orange shadows across the pavement. Rebecca hugged him tightly. "Grandpa, I'm so sorry you went through all that," Walter smiled gently. "Don't be. Sometimes life breaks you on purpose, just to see if you still remember how to rebuild." He ran his hand across the hood of the car. "Funny thing, I thought I was fixing this Ferrari, but maybe it was fixing me?" Rebecca wiped her eyes. "What are you going to do with it now?" He looked at her, a small smile forming. "Maybe I'll keep it," he said. "Not as a trophy, but as a reminder." She tilted her head. "Of what?" "That even in a world full of Jonathans," he said, "there's still room for a man who believes in doing the right thing, even when no one's watching." As the camera pans out, the Ferrari gleams in the sunset, alive again. The old man and his granddaughter walk away slowly, their silhouettes fading into golden light. On the hood of the car, the burned microchip glints, the only piece of evidence that destroyed an empire built on lies. A single line fades onto the screen. "Integrity is a machine that never stops running if you keep its engine clean." If this story moved you, hit subscribe. Because somewhere, right now, another Walter is being laughed at, and another truth is waiting to be rebuilt. Leave your thoughts below, and tell us what you'd do if you were in his place.